Hello, trappers. Welcome back to Will Trap TV. We can't talk about Atlanta without talking about Takeoff's passing. I wanted to take a moment to pay our respects to Takeoff. He was an amazing artist who was gone way too soon. Thank you. Hey, welcome back, guys. Today we are reviewing Atlanta Season 4, Episode 9. This episode is called Andrew Wyeth, Alfred's World. Let's jump right into it, guys. Let's go. So we start the episode with Paper Boi out shooting his Draco in the forest with what looks like Gucci slippers on. He gets a call from Ern and he ignores the call. He puts his ear protection back on and he unloads the Draco into a tree. And he's very happy with how it performs. So we see Pape and it looks like he has purchased his safe farm and he's on a farm, right? He goes over to a shed and inside he has a bunch of marijuana plants that he's tending to. It looks like he's putting a lot of the TLC into these guys because he really, gets in there and talks to his plants and he seems to be knowing what he's doing. As he's leaving the shed, he noticed that there's a big hole in the bottom and he ends the scene. We next see Pape inside of a department store. He's here getting some supplies and we see a guy kind of staring at him and then Pape looks at him and then he looks away. I couldn't tell if he was a fan, but I got like some of the vibes from the last episode where Pape was in when the guy showed up and tried to murder him. He goes to check out and the clerk asks if he had any trouble finding anything. Pape asks if they have any cast iron skillets. The guy replies, well, if you didn't see one in the store, you probably don't have it. Pape then asks about some animal repellent and then the guy says if he didn't see that in the store, they probably don't have that either. So this guy asks if he needed help finding anything, and then he was just completely unhelpful. So Pape starts to look down at his phone, and the guy immediately looks at him and he asks him if he's gonna order the cast iron skillet on Amazon. And Pape, he looks up, he sees a Confederate flag and a sign that says, "We don't call the police," and he says no. So we switch scenes, and it looks like Pape has found like an abandoned tractor on his property, and then he starts to work on it. He's watching a guide on YouTube from a channel that's called Backhoes Ain't Loyal, which is pretty funny. Pape gets a text from Ern and he still doesn't read it and he continues working on the tractor. On the channel, the guy says you gotta be careful working on these things because they can kind of collapse on you and that he lost two uncles. And then Pape starts to hear some creaking in the tractor as he's working on it and he quickly gets from under it. And he gets up and nothing happens at first and he starts laughing at the whole situation, but then the tractor does actually collapse. So Pape could have lost his life, but he was able to avoid it. I walked away from the scene thinking that maybe Pape isn't made for this solo farm life. So now it's nighttime and Pape is cooking and he hears something going on outside. He goes outside to investigate. He has his Draco and there's some like banging on the shed. He calls out to the shed. He thinks there's an animal in there and he calls out to kind of scare the animal and hopefully make him come out, but nothing comes out. So then he rushes in to the shed with his Draco and there's no one in there, but a lot of his plants are destroyed. He takes a step and he steps to a big pile of shit, which is pretty disgusting, on his Gucci slippers, by the way, and we end the scene. Pape goes back to the department store and he shows the store owner some photos of what went down, of the poop and the shed. And the store owner asks Pape if Pape picked up the shit, if it was hard or soft, and Pape's like, what the hell? Hell no. So the guy says he looks like he has some feral hogs harassing him, and Pape asks for a less lethal kind of solution. He asks if there's any repellent, and the guy says, oh no, repellent's not gonna work on these guys. The perp asks Pape what kind of crops he's growing, and Pape lies and tells him that he's growing corn. So the guy tells him, okay, go get the corn, put it out there, and then try to take the hog out with the rifle. Pape doesn't want to actually kill the hogs, but the clerk tells him that this is life or death and that the hogs will kill him if he doesn't kill them. Pape laughs at this, but then the clerk lets Pape know that this really happened to a woman in Houston and that she was mauled by some hogs. And this is actually a true story. A woman was mauled by hogs in 2019. In the next scene, we see Pape working on the tractor again. He's still following instructions from the YouTube channel and they're telling him to change the oil. He tries to start the tractor, but it won't start. He then takes the engine cap off and he finds a dead rat inside of the engine. He's really disgusted by this and he slowly pulls it out and just throws it away. And he's this, ugh. In the next scene, we see that Pape has gone over the top and put a metal door on the shed. He's also using the destroyed plants as bait to lure out the hogs. Pape goes in the house and he falls asleep watching television. He wakes up suddenly from, I can't tell if it's a TV, if there's a noise outside, but he goes outside and he sees the hogs have destroyed the bait and the actual cart that he placed it in. This makes Pape pretty upset and we switch scenes. We now see Pape at the tractor and he finally gets a win. He is able to start the tractor. He starts driving the tractor around, driving around the property, and eventually he comes up on this like ridge slash hill. The tractor's stuck on the hill and Pape gets out to try to push it forward so it's not stuck anymore. He looks back to his house, and before you know it, suddenly the tractor starts to flip over. Pape tries to move out the way and he falls down the hill, and then we cut to a commercial. When we come back from the commercial, we find out that Pape has not died, but he's pretty injured. It looks like his head is injured, he's bleeding from his mouth, and his leg, his foot is also stuck under the tractor. He's able to pull out his foot, and at first I thought it was broken, but it looks like it just looked really bad, and he tries to walk on the foot, but then eventually he collapses and has to rest because it's just too much pain on that foot. We switch scenes and we see Pape literally crawling, dragging himself through the grass all the way around the lake back to his house. We see an Amazon worker pull up in a van to deliver a package, and Pape begins screaming, waving, trying to get help, but the Amazon worker is wearing headphones as he drops everything off and takes a picture, and then she leaves. Pape finally crawls back to his porch. He gets to his porch, he gets the package, and he opens it up to find out that it's a cast iron skillet. He also looks and he sees those hogs sitting around his property eating. One of the hogs starts to smell blood, and they immediately rush Paper Boi to try to kill him. Paper Boi stands up and he's getting mauled by the hog. The hog definitely is putting in work, but Paper Boi gets his arms around its neck. He drops on the ground. He starts to try to choke it out. He can't really choke out the hog. The hog is fighting pretty hard. So then eventually he grabs the cast iron pan and he starts banging this dude in the head until he dies. After Pape survives this ordeal with the hog, he hears his phone ringing inside the kitchen. He manages to crawl and get himself into the kitchen to answer the phone, and it's Ern. Ern's calling about some lawyers and some contracts, and he's saying everything's going smoothly. He asks how Pape is doing. Pape lies and says everything is fine, doesn't tell him that he's hurt, and he ends the call. The next scene, we see Pape cooking some bacon. And it turns out it's not the bacon, or not the hog that he just killed, his actual real bacon he bought from the store, and he throws it in the trash. He goes to take out the trash, and we see that he has lifted the entire hog into his trash can. Didn't even sell it, didn't even offer to do anything with it. He's not a real farmer. He goes out to his porch and he starts icing his leg, and he gives Ern a call on FaceTime. Ern asks him what was going on yesterday and what's happened to his face, and Paper Boi still doesn't tell Ern what is going on. Pape says he's just been running around shooting, he got the tractor fixed, but he leaves all the bad things out. Ern says that Pape should be careful on his safe farm, that if he doesn't like it, he should come back to the city, but the safe farm is really just a place to give him options. Pape says that he likes the farm, things are moving in slow motion and everything's fine. He says that his neck is hurting, and he doesn't tell Ern the real reason why his neck is hurting with him falling down the hill, but he does say his neck is hurting. Ern tells him that it looks like he got a sunburn being out there, and Pape is like, black people can't get sunburns. So they go into this back and forth, naming a bunch of celebrities, black celebrities who Ern says can get sunburns. Ern also tells us that white folks can get Ern also tells us that white folks can get ashy, and pretty much there's a back and forth, and we end the episode. So here are my thoughts on this one, guys. So this episode, we're kind of we're getting to the end of Atlanta. This is the penultimate episode, and I can tell you, this is not what I expected. I expected kind of everyone to be together and maybe some kind of plot that gets resolved in the finale, but it looks like we kind of just focused on Paper Boi, and that's just fine. Paper Boi seems to kind of, like last episode where we kind of got to like a ending / some closure for Ern. He's going to be able to move to LA with his family. It looks like in this episode, we see that Pape kind of has his safe farm, and he's kind of finding some closure here. It seems like in the beginning of the episode that the farm life is going to be too difficult for him, that he's not going to be able to survive out here, but he is able to. He's able to adapt. He fixes his tractor. He's able to stop the hogs from breaking into his shed. So, and he's making upgrades and just doing things little by little. So Paper Boi is very capable. And also throughout this whole season too, we've seen Paper Boi trying to be more independent. If you look back at the episode, if you look back at the YWA episode, when he was trying to get, his young white avatar and be a manager and kind of be on his own, lane. Another thing that Paper Boi is worried about is his safety. Throughout this whole series, Paper Boi, out of all the characters, has been the person confronted the most with violence. You remember the second season, he got robbed during Robin's season in the car. Some kids approached him as well who seemed like fans. And then in this episode, the Crank That Killer episode, we had, someone try to kill him. So Paper Boi is really trying to keep himself safe, get into an environment where he feels comfortable, and he took Soldier Boy's advice to go set up the safe farm. I also think there's some layers of with Ern, because since the first season, Ern has kind of been managing Paper Boi, making sure that everything's okay. But I feel like Paper Boi wants to stop being, whenever we say Paper Boi, he's always kind of sitting around on the couch or, unless he's rapping or doing something like that. I feel like he really went out of his way to not be lazy and kind of work on something and do it himself. You know, people, whenever you hear someone say, I did it myself, they're always on a YouTube video. He's watching YouTube videos. He's watching YouTube videos to learn about the tractor and get it working. He's just doing little things around the farm. So he's just really trying to be an independent, and he's not answering calls from people because he feels like he doesn't need them and he can do things himself. So there you guys have it. It's not as crazy as last episode's was, you know, not as long, but still another good episode of Atlanta, still another good character story. I appreciate it, guys. Appreciate you guys for watching. I'm your boy, Jay Well. Make sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, and put on a notification bell so you know when I go live or make a new video. All right, guys. See you later. Peace.